If you've got a camera that you really like, except for the fact that it overheats when you record for long sessions at 4K, even 4K 24, let alone 4K 60, let's talk about what you might be able to do to cool it down. Before we dive in, I want to mention this video is not sponsored by anybody. I bought all of the parts and pieces of things that we're going to talk about here myself. I do have some Amazon affiliate links in the description though for some of the things that I'm going to talk about. If you'd like to support this channel and you think anything is going to work for you, those links are down there. All right, so camera overheating can be a pretty frustrating thing when you're a content creator if you make longer form content. And there are plenty of great quality cameras on the market that shoot amazing quality video, like the Sony ZV-E1 here, but unfortunately, they just have this issue where they overheat. Their internal thermal design is just not that great for shooting long form content in 4K resolution. So let's talk about the options that you have. There are some pre-made options on the market now for just this very issue, but you can also make things yourself if you don't mind putting in just a little bit of work that can solve the same issue for you. Maybe not be quite as elegantly designed as something that a large company would make, but you can get it done pretty cheap. And in my experience, especially if you don't do a lot of mobile shooting, it can work very well for you. In fact, right now, a little double fan that I put together is cooling my A7IV right now. And I've had no trouble recording for up to an hour, even a little over an hour, 4K 24 or 4K 30 indoors in a somewhat warm space, and it never shuts down on me anymore. But first, let's talk about a couple of the on-the-market options that are available. One of them I don't personally have and I haven't tested, and that would be the Tilta camera fan camera cage combo. Basically, you need to buy a cage made by Tilta, and that's not what I have here. I have a cage made by Small Rig on my ZV-E1 right now. The Tilta cage has a larger bottom portion to it. It's kind of got this chunky bottom, so the camera will actually sit up higher off of a flat surface. But the important part of the extended bottom part on the Tilta cage is that is where their cooling fan actually mounts to it. So you can't just buy the cooling fan attachment that Tilta makes and attach it to any cage. You have to go for the cage if you want Tilta's cooling fan. So that is an option that you have out there. It's going to be the most pricey option out of things we're talking about today because you have to get the cage and the fan. Another option that recently came onto the market is this little fan made by Ulanzi. And Ulanzi is a company that makes a whole bunch of camera accessories, and I like a lot of them, quite frankly. When it comes to this little fan, this has a battery in it. It charges via a USB-C port on the front. You can also just power it consistently with USB-C power if you have a power bank or a charger that you want to plug into it if you're not mobile. If you are mobile, this basically just attaches to the back of your camera with suction cups. Now, I don't have the sheet on here, but they also include sort of like a plastic sticker that's like a sheet that you put back here, and that makes this surface a better surface for the suction cups to stick to, because that is how this mounts. You just take this and you press it right on the back surface of the camera, and even without that sticker sheet on there, it does an okay job of sticking on. One of the sides doesn't really firmly seat, but the side that has 4 suction cups does actually stick pretty well just to the ZV-E1 back anyway, without that sheet on there, but it is a lot more secure with the sheet on there. Now, once it's on there, all you do is press and hold down on this little button and it will turn on. There is a little readout on this tiny little screen that tells you the camera body temperature. So there's a temperature sensor on the back where it's facing the camera, and it will tell you what that temperature is. And you can then press the button again to cycle through the power modes. So the fan will turn on and you are on the lowest setting, which is setting 1. And then you can ramp it up to setting 2 if you need to. The downside to this Ulanzi fan, in my opinion, is that both modes are a little bit on the noisy side, and that may or may not matter to you. The situation where it matters would be if your camera is going to be anywhere near your microphone. So for example, my A camera, the A7IV over there, even if it had this fan on it, it wouldn't matter because it is, I would say, at least 4 feet away from my microphone, which is mounted up here just out of frame, facing me, of course, not facing that way. So even if the fan was making this much noise, there's a decent chance that it probably wouldn't be getting in any, noticeable level. So this is setting number 1. And then this is setting number 2. And then that's off again. So it does work. It works pretty well in my experience. I've used it on the ZV-E1 a couple of times in situations where I had this far away from my microphone, and I just had it on the 1 setting, and it worked pretty well. The charging, the battery seems to last, definitely at least a couple of solid hours before it would die. So this is a decent solution, especially if you need to be mobile and you just need something that's going to be stuck on here and not require any special mounting of any kind. So this is not a bad solution if you are filming on the go. And by the way, the price of this I don't think is outrageous. It's certainly more affordable than getting the Tilta camera cage system and the Tilta fan. When I bought this, it was running, I think, $21 or $24. I will throw up on the screen what I see the current price on Amazon is right now. But now let's talk about a do-it-yourself option that gives you the ability to mount it using kind of more traditional studio type mounting scenarios. Now this solution is not going to include mounting to the actual camera, so it's not the best solution for filming on the go. If you're sitting in a studio space or recording space like I am right now, your camera is not going anywhere and you can mount this, then this can be a decent little solution if you don't mind tinkering a little bit. So what I have here are two 40mm fans. I'll put a link to these down in the description, these specific ones, but all you have to do really is on Amazon is search for 40mm fan. You can search for Raspberry Pi fan as well. The reason why I bought these this time to do this one is because these actually have a little speed control switch on them. So they're USB powered. They come already wired with a USB cable. You can also get them with just sort of a cut-off, no formal plug wire so that you can solder yourself. And we're still gonna have to solder here because what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna splice two of these into one. But the handy thing here is because this has a USB-A end on it already, I'm not gonna have to sacrifice one of my own USB-A cables or buy a separate one. And then the way we're actually gonna mount them is not anything special. We're gonna use some glue. I'm gonna use super glue. You can use hot glue. You can use any kind of glue that works, really, to glue these onto a little camera cage sort of cheese plate or cheese bar with just a bunch of different mounting holes on it. We're just going to glue two of these fans onto this guy, and then we're going to use the threaded part on the bottom to attach this to a clamp arm, which will allow us to position it any way we need to behind the camera. So all we need to do before we assemble that is cut the wire on both of these above this switch. And then we need to strip the wires, each of the two wires in there. Make sure you make note of which one has a white stripe or other marking on it, because that is your positive wire. Now, if a wire stripper doesn't work, you may need to use an X-Acto knife. All right, now let's get our soldering gear out here. Make sure you twist together both positives and both negatives. Once you get them twisted together, go ahead and break out the solder and solder each side together so that they are nice and solid. Okay, so that may not be the best soldering you've ever seen. I'm sure somebody in the comments will say that that looks absolutely terrible. Everybody has things they're good at, and for me, this isn't one of them, but it should be good enough to hold these together. Now, I do want to use some electrical tape to tie this up and keep it tidy, and also probably get some in between the two sides so that they don't actually touch each other when it's closed up. But before I do anything else, before we finish this, I want to plug this in and actually make sure it works. So I've got a wall charger here. We're going to plug this in and see what happens. It would help if I had something to plug it into. Okay, got that plugged into the outlet over there, and a moment of truth. We turn on the switch. So that's our lowest setting, and it should increase in speed for the medium and the high, and it does. Seems to work perfectly. All right, now to get these mounted on this little plate, I am just gonna go with tried and true super glue because I know that's gonna hold well enough for me. There's certainly a lot of different ways you can get these sort of affixed to this, but I'm gonna go with super glue. There's certainly kind of DIY rigs and setups that you can use to sort of clamp these guys in place and hold them still, but I don't do a lot of DIY, so instead I'm actually gonna use the little clamp arm that's going to be the final part of this rig. So this is just a small rig clamp arm. They make different lengths, so if you need a longer one, you can get a longer one. This is the 5.5 inch length. We're just gonna screw this right into one of the 1/4-20 mounts, just like that. I'm gonna clamp this onto my table here, and that will hold this part in place while I'm gluing it. I think I am gonna glue them together first and then glue them here. So we'll just put a very thin line of glue on here because we're gonna press these together, so it's gonna kind of fill itself out. You don't need a lot there. And put them down on a flat surface and then just press them together. And by the way, if the flat surface you're on is your nice table or desk or something like that, you probably want to put down a paper towel or piece of plastic or something so you don't glue these to your table. Now, in this case, because there's a bunch of holes here, I'm actually going to put the glue on the plate instead of on the fans. Now we'll set these guys on there. Try to center them as best we can and hold on to that for a few seconds. You certainly can be a perfectionist about doing this. I'm sure you could probably 3D print a housing for this with a 1/4-20 mount in it, so you don't have to buy the little mount or something like that. So there's definitely more sophisticated ways to do this. I'm not sophisticated. All right, there we go. The glue should be dry enough for us to test this out. We're gonna test this out on my tabletop tripod here rather than a regular one because it'll be a lot easier to see this. So I've got my ball head here with my Ulanzi claw mount for my camera. Now, of course, we're gonna flip our screen open here. We always wanna get the cool air right onto the back of the camera body where we get the best heat dissipation here. Now we can go ahead and clamp this on to our tripod. Now, different tripods are going to have different places where this clamp will wanna mount. It does open wide enough that I can put it right on the body of the ball head here. Basically, just clamp it on anywhere that it fits. If you do get the longer option of this arm, that gives you even more flexibility of where to put it. Now, we have a little fan that's gonna blow right on the back of the body of our ZV-E1. So let's plug this back in and turn it on. Now, I personally will probably just leave this on the low setting in my recording space because I don't seem to need more than that. But it is nice to have the medium and the high speed just in case, you know, you were using this somewhere where it is hotter and you need that extra speed. But I'm sure you can probably hear it at this point. I'll hold it up here so you can hear it a little bit better. Get it kind of in the direct line of sight of my microphone. This is the high setting. This is the medium setting. And then this is the low setting. So that's pretty much what you can expect from that. And if we just compare that to our Ulanzi fan here, this is the low setting of the Ulanzi fan again. And then this is the low setting of our little fan rig. So there you go. The only thing you're gonna be limited by with this is the length of this USB cable. Now you can use, as I'm using right now, a USB cable extender if you need to, because the cable that comes with this guy with the switch is not super long. Just keep that in mind. So for the little bit of effort it took, personally, I think it's really worth it. However, if you need something, like I said earlier, that's more mobile, that sticks to your camera instead of to your rig, then the Ulanzi fan is not a bad option. I just think it's a little bit noisy if you're gonna have it near the microphone that's picking up your main audio. Like I said, everything that I used for this is linked down in the description. If you wanna support the channel and you plan on picking anything up, let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or if you have your own rig that you put together for cooling down one of your favorite cameras that also happens to overheat. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button if you did find the video helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel. Thanks everybody, see you next time.